Hello everyone and welcome back to the most freshly showered man on YouTube, where today we are going over episode 3 Heresy weapons. They're not craftable. Let's just get that out of the way right now. They're not craftable, but they are dropping so much more frequently than I feel like anything in episode 2 is dropping. You're getting them out of random loot chests on the Dreadnought, doing the Nether. They're dropping after every boss encounter. The double perks, the double perk drops, I got 6 on day 1 of episode 3. I got like 3 or 4 total in all of episode 2. So weapons are dropping, okay? They're dropping a lot. You just got to get in there and play. But they are dropping very, very frequently. So you should be able to get what you're looking for. As with the previous episodes, we have 6 weapons that have launched with Act 1, with another 2 coming for Act 2, another 2 coming for Act 3. We're just going to go over all of them today because they're in the API and legally I'm allowed to do that. But if you see something that's not out yet, you just got to wait until the next act and hope that it comes out then. First up, we have adamantite, which is the second support frame auto rifle in the game. The first one being No Hesitation from Pale Heart. That came out a few months ago. It is strand. It's the first one in the kinetic slot. And I know you might think like, strand, healing, support frame. Like, I don't really know. But this thing has it's got some options here. Let's go over a couple new perks here. We got reciprocity, where when healing, your healing projectiles hit allies, you also get a little bit of healing. I imagine this is to sort of be a physic replacement. So that was a perk. Well, I mean, it is a perk on No Hesitation, where when you rapidly heal allies, you and them get restoration, which is, as we know, very good effect. So this is kind of close to that, And then we have tear, which is where precision final blows cause nearby targets to become severed. We do have a decent amount of access to sever in both prismatic and strand subclasses via the fragment. That allows headshots to sever a target, rapid headshots. So if you're already running with something like that, then the less I think you need tear or even slice, something like that. But you can take this in a few different directions, right? You could go maybe more support, just like really focused on your healing with like reciprocity, circle of life. So that way you give yourself at least a little bit of damage. Although 25% damage boost is, pretty hefty. And I think the killing power of these support frame autos has been a little like, they don't slay out that hard. So having that extra damage would be nice. We also have a new perk here, Elemental Honing, although I'm not really going to recommend it for a support frame auto. We'll go over this perk another time and how it works on a weapon that you might actually want it on. Me personally, like, this is a support frame. I want to lean into the support nature of the frame, right? I'm not using this to try to slay out. I'm using a different weapon if I really want to slay out. If you wanted to go like full-on support, you could do reciprocity with tear. That is literally just, you're focusing on healing, you're focusing on debuffing. Sever is a fantastic debuff, massive damage reduction. Subsistence is also here in case you don't want to get like a slice or reciprocity. Everything else I'm just kind of sleeping on right now. Although Unrelenting, as of this video, is working at 100% efficacy in the Nether. I don't know if that's supposed to be like that. I think they said a balance patch is coming for a lot of the healing effects, so don't lean on that just yet, at least until we get some more information. But yeah, Subsistence is also, always going to be a fine perk if you want to use that with, if you want to combine it with Circle of Life, you want to do it with, I probably wouldn't do it with Tear. If you're going to go for some sort of a utility-based thing, I would maybe go for damage on the other side. But yeah, you got some options. I'd probably be hunting down Reciprocity and Tear or Circle of Life. I would love a double perk situation where I get Reciprocity and then both of these at the same time. That'd be very cool. I do think this is one of the better weapons to go chase down for this episode out of the bunch that we've gotten. You also notice here we have Runneth Over, which is a very, very good origin trait. This is only dropping on double perk drops. It will not show up on normal weapons. So Runneth Over, I don't think the most super important origin trait for this particular weapon, but for some other weapons, it's going to be pretty valuable. Mainly looking at like fusion rifles and stuff like that, stuff where you'd want to overthrow the mag a little bit more. But we'll talk about that in some other weapons. Next up, we have Mirror Imago, which is a 900 RPM strand SMG. The only other one of these is, that's right, Imminence from Salvation's Edge. So this is the first time we're getting a 900 RPM strand SMG outside of the raid. That being said, if you have an Imminence, Do I think you need to go get a mirror imago? No, I really don't. Maybe if you see like a certain perk combination on here, maybe you're looking at like pugilist, swashbuckler, or something like that. If there's something hyper specific you want on this, then sure, go get it. But if you already have an imminence and you're kind of cool with an imminence, I think you can kind of chill with that. I think this is mainly for the non-raiders out there, giving them access to an archetype that they haven't had access to. New perk. We got recycled energy. Reloading after defeating targets grants energy to your lowest charge ability. Sort of like this, like a demo strategist, freaking pugilist type thing, except it just replenishes all of your energy. I could see this maybe getting a little more popularity, depending on the kind of builds that maybe open up to us in the future. I could see this even being a pretty decent perk right now, although usually people like to tightly focus in on one thing that they're doing in particular, but new perk either way. We also have here Sword Logic appearing for the first time outside of Crota's end weapons, but Sword Logic I don't think really ever caught on. I haven't really seen it that much. I think there's just other options out there that you can trigger on your own without having to rely on like killing hyper specific targets. I mean, look at even something like One for All, right? One for All activates on hitting 3 unique enemies, and it gives you the same damage bonus as killing a player in their super or a mini boss for the same duration, like half a second less, which doesn't really leave that much here. I mean, you got like Unrelenting in the second major column of perks, which usually, that's more of like a first column thing, technically third column. You guys know what I'm saying. On first glance, it appears a bit mid to me. That's all I'm really going to say. You do have some melee stuff here. You want to do a swash, grave robbery, pugilist swash. You got subsistence on here. If you want to do some sort of hatchling strand thing, hatchling's here for you. You do a subsistence hatchling kind of deal. Target lock, I'm not hugely into for PvE. But it's okay. It's just not really my thing. Permeability, no, we're not using offhand strike. It just kind of, I'm personally not feeling it. Maybe my mood on it will change over the episode. But upon first glance, I'm a bit underwhelmed by the experience here. A bit underwhelmed. Next up, we have Refusal of the Call. I believe this is the first Strand Glaive, and I believe it is also the first Discord Glaive. Discord is going to be appearing on quite a lot of weapons in this episode, and I think that's because Bungie wants people to like actually play with other weapons a bit more freely. But we'll get to Discord in a moment with some other stuff here. Although Discord you could absolutely use on this thing. It's got it's got replenishing Aegis with close to melee. I know that's a pretty popular combo, but it just kind of feels futile to talk to non-glaive people because I don't know how much convincing I'm really gonna be able to do to be like glaives are actually kind of good now if you know what you're doing. We have a new perk, melee momentum. Melee final blows with this weapon grant it bonus energy and provide increased movement speed while blocking. I could see like a replenishing melee momentum type setup if you wanted to do that. You got auto loading on here for some convenience. So there's some decent stuff on here. I think it's just a matter of, if you want access specifically to a strand glaive. I was about to say strave. A strand glaive. But I think glaive enjoyers, there's something here for you to enjoy. Glaive people stay winning. I think you got some options here. If you want to mess around with Discord a little bit for just shooting some projectiles, I think that's also fine. But there's some stuff to mess around with. But do I think this is going to change any non-glaive users into being a glaive user? That I'm not so sure. Next up, we have Division, which is a heavy burst. That is a 2-burst arc sidearm. If your brain's going off like, oh my god, arc sidearm, we haven't had one in so long, even though we had one last episode with Anonymous Autumn, but it's from Crucible, and it's 12 perks in each column, so it's impossible to get the thing that I want, which is a really specific thought, but like, I get it. Volt Shot. The last time we had a sidearm with Volt Shot, besides Anonymous Autumn, was way back in Season of the Plunder with Brigand's Law, and people are pretty much exclusively using that for Volt Shot. PvE players, I'm guessing you're going to exclusively be using this thing for Volt Shot, as pretty much everything else here is like not that enticing, or you can get it on something else. Honestly, it's even maybe looking more like a PvP based sidearm, if anything, with the 2-burst and some of the perk selections on here. But I think I'm just really going to keep this one short. Volt Shot's on here. Eddy Current's on here. There's a bunch of new arc stuff to play around with. I mean, accept the gift that the game is giving you. I don't know what else you'd really be getting on this thing as a PvE player. Just grab Volt Shot. If you want to grab some other perk in the first major column that, messes with how you play a little bit more, feel free. You want to go Pugilist, fine. You want to go Grave Robber, fine. Me, I'm just going to go for Eddy Current, and I'm going to go for Volt Shot. And that's probably going to be the end of my day. Next up, we have Afterlight, a Void Adaptive Frame fusion rifle, 660 charge time, so like kind of close to the middle. This does not have controlled burst, which is just kind of like the premier fusion rifle perk for sustained damage in any kind of a way. So without that, I don't know how much of a contender this is necessarily going to be as a sustained damage weapon. But something that I do think is interesting is Discord with Reservoir Burst. You get a kill with a different weapon, you switch over to this, and then you have Discord activated, which is giving you ammo back on kills. And Reservoir Burst is giving you 25% increased damage, plus it's giving you a big AoE. So I think the mentality here is get a kill with whatever gun you're using, swap to this thing, and just let this thing frickin' rip on some enemies, guarantee some kills, get some Reservoir Burst procs, and just kind of go nuts. This is where something like Runneth Over, I think, would also be pretty nice to have if you can get it. Just being able to ensure that you get more Reservoir Burst shots off on this thing. But otherwise, maybe you can work with like the new Ambitious Assassin because Bungie updated it, quote, removed time requirements on the perk to make it more comparable to Envious Assassin, as this perk requires you to use ammo for the weapons this perk is on. You could go that way if you really wanted to. Also, Lead from Gold, I feel like, is also never a terrible choice. But to me, the gift here is mainly Reservoir Burst. You could also look at destabilizing rounds as well. I'm sure there's some people that are going to do something with like Discord destabilizing and get a bunch of volatile off. But I think the main role that I'm going to be looking for personally is Discord, Reservoir Burst, and just mess around with some weapons, feeling a bit more free to use the weapons as opposed to having to regulate my ammo like so specifically and only using it on hyper specific targets as to not waste my ammo or anything like that. So I'm gonna be trying this thing out. Otherwise, next up we have anamnesis, probably Nesis. You tell me. This is a Void lightweight frame bow. If you recall, during the video that I made recently on all the best legendary weapons, I said I was pretty underwhelmed with void bows, legendary void bows. Lethophobia we got somewhat recently. I was kind of underwhelmed by that. It's got some good stuff here, okay? If you want to go Repulsor D-Stab, you can totally do that, especially now with destabilizing rounds being a much, much shorter internal cooldown. It went from, I believe, 4 to 1.5 seconds. So Repulsor destabilizing rounds is now something I actually want to play around with. Maybe I'll have an update to my destabilizing rounds video that I did forever ago. If you want to just do Archer's Tempo, it's here. If you got Successful Warm-Up, it's here. We have a new perk, Demoralize. Precision final blows cause nearby targets to become weakened. I got a Dragonfly Demoralize bow on my first day that I think could be a pretty interesting bow roll, right? You're providing a big AoE effect and you're providing some weaken on those targets as well. So this, I think, could be a fun setup to mess around with, although maybe the higher tier content you go where bow headshots are a little bit slower to come by, maybe it kind of falls off a little bit, but it is there if you want to try it out. Is absolutely there to mess around with. You got Explosive Head, if you really just want to do something boring like Archer's Tempo Explosive Head, I think that's totally fine. Sword Logic is here again, but I just don't, I'm not hugely about it at all. So yeah, if you really want to use this thing, again, destabilizing with Repulsor, you could try the Dragonfly Demoralize. You want to go a little more traditional with Archer's Tempo or maybe like a Successful Warm-Up, I think that's totally fine as well. Next up, we have Psychopomp, Area, Denial, Frame, Arc, Grenade Launcher. Lost Signal's been popping off. Velocity Baton with Attrition Orbs has been popping off. Some of the most popular weapons in the game right now. And honestly, I think Psychopomp keeps up a lot of that area denial frame momentum. We were messing around with Rolling Storm, which is a new perk. Final blows grant bolt charge, while amplified final blows grant additional bolt charge. We were experiencing some things where, like, sometimes you would get 1 bolt charge, and then sometimes you might get 2 bolt charge, even if you're not amplified. I think sometimes someone said they got like 3 at one point. But this appears to be a pretty good perk, especially when you're considering something like the Nether, which has a lot of very tightly clustered enemies, right? You're thinking of certain encounters and how enemies love to just gang up on you. You drop like 1 shot of psychopomp and you can get like a ton of bolt charge. You're combining that with the new Titan aspect where when you're standing behind a barricade, you're getting a ton of bolt charge, very rapid fire. You could be bolt charging like every shot or even faster than that. So this is definitely a contender on like arc specific setups, right? On non-arc setups, I don't know how much I'm really pushing into bolt charge, but specifically on an arc setup, I think there's a good amount of potential here. So to pair with Rolling Storm, I mean, the Eddy Current is the pretty obvious choice to match with it. You could also do like a stats for all. Stats for all will essentially be like up 100% of the time, especially if you're in the Nether with how many enemies are spawning and are grouping up. So stats for all is not a bad pick either. Ambitious Assassin got, again, that rework that we just discussed. When it comes to full court, it seems like it would be a good idea, but the people that I've spoken to that have played around with it said that it kind of seems like a pain to keep this rolling. And if you're going to be chasing down that damage boost, I think you might as well just go with Frenzy. It's a little bit less damage, but you get other benefits as well, and it's much easier to proc. We do have Elemental Honing here, but again, on this weapon in particular, I personally am not chasing this down. I think it's better suited for like a workhorse kind of a weapon, or even more like a power weapon. So maybe we'll go over that in a moment here. But yeah, I probably wouldn't go Elemental Honing. You could maybe even do like a Harmony situation too. I don't think that's a terrible idea, especially if you want to pair it with Envious Arsenal, although that does require you to tap your power weapon. So I guess maybe try to get a machine gun if you're going to work with Envious Arsenal. But yeah, Rolling Storm seems to have a good amount of hype to it right now. I'm definitely very interested in trying it out with my Titan. And I have a pretty specific setup that I want to try to showcase for a build video coming up soon. So yeah, I think I'd probably be looking for Eddy Current, Rolling Storm, and then maybe throughout the episode, you know, if we find some other things that are a bit more interesting, I'll try them out. But again, I always say play with the gifts that the game is giving you, right? With Velocity Baton, it's giving you Attrition Orbs. Attrition Orbs is insane on that thing. Focus on using that. This one's giving you Rolling Storm. Play around with Rolling Storm. Moving to power weapons, we have Abyssal Edge, a strand wave sword frame. So it's a wave, I keep wanting to call it a wave frame sword because it just rolls off the tongue better, but it's a wave sword frame. Not many strand swords in the game. The last one we got, I think, was from Warlord's Ruin, which was a caster frame that I think basically nobody used. So what do we have here? Relentless is here, okay? It's here if you just want something a little more basic. I was talking with some people about doing like a tireless blade on guard combo. So essentially you take out the sword super quick, you do your very quick attack, you get a bunch of bonus damage, and then hopefully you get some ammo back, and then you kind of keep using it as like a swap thing to go back and forth. I think that could be potentially pretty interesting. Elemental Honing, again, so let's talk about Elemental Honing. So dealing unique elemental damage grants this weapon a stacking damage bonus. This bonus is increased for kinetic weapons. This is not a kinetic weapon, so we're just going to ignore that. So how does this work exactly? I mean, it works pretty much as it says. We got 5 different elements in the game, right? Arc, solar, void, stasis, and strand. So the more you hit with of any, it does not matter the source, by the way. Of all those you hit with, you get an increasing damage buff. And if you manage to proc all 5, you get a 20-second timer. You can't refresh it because you fully activated the perk. And I believe it's 35% bonus damage to activate all of them for 20 seconds. So there is a world where I think you could use this as some kind of a boss damage perk, but you need to have the ability to hit all 5 damage types in the game right before a damage phase. And that is not always going to be a guarantee. That's a pretty conditional thing. And it's very build dependent if you can make that happen. Now you can deal unique elemental damage with this weapon and that will count as a stack, but one stack, I think, is like 2% or 3%, something like that. An incredibly small amount. So you can't just like hit something and be like, free damage. You're really going to want to focus on stacking it as high as you really can. So there is potential here for this thing, but it's pretty conditional. It's pretty build dependent. I think it's pretty fight dependent, if you can get it to trigger. But there's something, keep eyes on it. Just keep it in the back of your head. It could be something, but otherwise I'm probably going to be trying like a tireless blade on guard combo, or if you just want to go relentless strikes and maybe even like surrounded for those more conditional boss fights. Relentless surrounded in the Nether specifically might go pretty crazy again because of all the enemies there. This is basically a near permanent 40% damage buff on this thing. But yeah, keep eyes on this, but I think something like on guard tireless blade is potentially interesting, or relentless strikes, and if you want something else here, you can totally do it. Next, we got Eyes Unveiled Void Precision Linear Fusion. If you are looking for a traditional reload or ammo restoration plus damage perk setup on this thing, for this to be a DPS contender, the best thing that I think you really have here is Triple Tap Frenzy, which, hey, if that's all you got, then okay, but this is probably not going to be the greatest contender for DPS, although don't forget about Runneth Over. If you get a double perk drop, being able to reload and get a bunch of extra ammo in a linear fusion is pretty good. It's just that you don't really have the greatest damage perk to go with it. Sure, you have Reservoir Burst for like half the magazine, but at that point, it's basically as good as Frenzy when you use an entire magazine. Yeah, not really like boss DPS oriented, I would say. Even again, like you got Overflow and you got Triple Tap and you got Runneth Over, you think like, oh man, like where's the bait and switch, bro? But we don't have it. But we do have Discord. Again, Bungie trying to push people to use weapons a bit more freely. This is like a ad cleared linear fusion potentially. Like you would combo this with, Discord being in this column as opposed to like the first column. What would you even, like maybe like a field prep, but then like the whole point is to get free kills, right? Maybe like an Overflow or an ambitious assassin. Like this first column is just kind of brutal if you're pairing it with Discord. And I'm second guessing myself here. Yeah. Like if Discord was in this first major column here, you could have some fun with like Discord chain reaction, or even like Discord Adagio maybe for the increased damage, or Discord successful warm-up to shoot faster. Man. Oh well. Otherwise, yeah, I don't see this entering my inventory for like boss damage purposes anytime soon. But yeah, I kind of wish Discord was in this first column here. At least it would be a little more fun. Finally, we have Watchful Eye 600 RPM Arc Machine Gun, which I feel like are at a premium in the game. Song of Your Ute is a raid weapon from Crota's End. So this, I believe, is like the first time that we're having some sort of a normal speed machine gun for non-raiders out there. But if you're looking at a more traditional machine gun setup, just like an ad slang setup, really the main here is like Killing Tally. Or if you're in the Nether, maybe surrounded, because you'll probably be surrounded yet again. Probably pair that with field prep, Killing Tally for the extra magazine, or for the extra ammo. You could go Overflow. Overflow pairs very, very nicely with Killing Tally. You just need to make sure you've prepped Overflow so that it has, an overflowed magazine. But otherwise, you do have Eddy Current here, and we have 2 arc-based perks with Jolting Feedback, with Rolling Storm, right? You're going to be able to rack up Rolling Storm and Bolt Charge pretty darn quickly with a machine gun, again, especially in the Nether. So there are some arc shenanigans here to mess around with if you wanted to do something like that and go a little more arc focused. Jolting Feedback to get some jolt out on some bigger targets to AoE down the other enemies, or you just rack up some Rolling Storm. You're bolt charging all the smaller enemies. Again, Elemental Honing is here if you want to mess around with that, in case we do have a situation where you can proc Elemental Honing pretty easily on a boss. But again, this is on machine gun, which I don't think machine guns are really boss damage material right now. And if you are going to use a machine gun, you probably use like Thunderlord, which also just got some pretty significant changes. So yeah, if I'm going more traditional, we're looking at Killing Tally Overflow, Field Prep. If we're going arc focused, Eddy Current with Jolting or Rolling Storm is probably going to be your play. Surrounded is also, a conditional get. Target Lock, I just don't really like Target Lock on machine guns anymore. I've been saying that for quite a while now. Sword Logic, not really into it. Runneth Over, if you can get Runneth Over, that would be great with Killing Tally as well. But you're not using Hipfire Grip on this thing. Mulligan, you're probably not using Mulligan on this thing. Wellspring could be okay. That's everything. Those are all the weapons. Let me know if you are messing around with any perks that or perk combinations that I did not mention in this video. Maybe there's something I can learn from all of you, like you guys learn from me sometimes. Anyway, I hope. But yeah, those are all the weapons. We will talk about Vaulted Glass weapons sometime soon because those are now craftable and they got a revamp. So that will be coming whenever I can get around to it. That's it. Okay. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you next time.